So this time from the Masters of the Universe Classics, we're going to be taking a look at the figure for May of 2012, and that is Stinkor, Evil Master of Odors. Now we'll take a quick look at the back of the package here. You can see the other figures pictured here, and some nice little vintage art. I like the stink waves coming off of him. And you can read the bio, which is pretty much the 2002 series bio. Okay, we'll get right into the big controversy with this figure, and that is the reversed forearms. Now, when this figure was originally shown, you can see his little pieces, and you can even see it on the back of the package here, the way his gloves flare out. Well, they decided to change that when they did this. And to be honest with you, I'm not happy with it, but it's not something that annoys me. A lot of people have been up in arms, if you'll pardon the pun, about this, and it's caused them to end their subscription. I would, with it being the straw that broke the camel's back for them, for all the stuff that's gone wrong with the line through MattyCollector.com and Digital River and all that. I mean, it is kind of odd when you look at it. I really can't tell that they're reversed. The only way I can tell is that when you bend it, it does bend odd. It feels odd when you use that articulation point. And like I said, it's not something to me that makes that much of a difference. Would I have preferred it the other way? Probably. But the rest of the figure does kind of make up for it. Now, this is his... He does come with two looks to him. His vintage look and his 2002 head. And while I do like the retro look of this head, which is more the classic vintage figure look, which was basically a reprinted merman, and you can tell the ears there. Me personally, I much prefer the 2002 look. I think it distinguishes him a little bit more than it would if he were posed like this. Plus, you do get a little bit more added adaptability in the figure with the other head, and I'll come back to that. Now, the paint is pretty nice. You get a nice white striping here down his arms and the back of his head here. If you can see the fur sculpted on him, those parts are pretty much, I think, used from the Beastman mold, and he's got the hairy chest of the Beastman, and so that was neat. He's got this added neck piece, which gives him fur, but Merman had, the Classics Merman had that also, just to give a little more definition to his neck. So that's nice too. So we'll get into his accessories now. We'll start off with the vintage shield. And I think I've seen this on all the shields here, which does kind of worry me, is that stress mark there. I'm afraid that eventually that will snap off, but it does seem pretty sturdy now, and I believe it does come packed in the packaging like that. So not only do you get the vintage type shield, you get a lot of stuff for his 2002 look. Of course, he has the pretty much the same design for his chest piece here, which will be seen again in the Mechanic figure in, is it October? Yes, October, which I can't wait for. And you can see here, you'll just take it off like that, and you can put it back on. I'm not going to take it all off, but it can come off. So we'll take a look at his 2002 designed head, and before we put that on, we'll just do a little comparison here. You can see the more pointed ears, and you have a more mammalian look than the sort of amphibious look of the repainted merman head, which is why I like this one a little bit more. It's meant to go with some of his other accessories, primarily his gas mask. And if you notice, the gas mask is kind of sculpted here to fit this molded face. And what you do is you see that little lip there will just fit underneath his chin, and you'll stretch the top there to his little piece that's on the bridge of his nose. And it should kind of just sit there by friction, and it does just sit there. Unfortunately, I've noticed that when it's on the figure like that, and you're posing it, if you don't sort of keep it on there with your hands, it will fall off because of the pressure that's put onto it by just moving it around. He does come with a removable piece in the front here to switch out his vintage look, and you'll probably want to keep this piece someplace safe, because you'll probably lose that otherwise if you like the 2002 version. And you can see he can replace it with this sort of nozzle-like thing that will release the gas and the stink that he produces. Now, he does have a backpack, a blue backpack that just plugs into the back there very nicely. He does have a weapon. Now, I think would have been really cool if they had a hose that went from the gun to the pieces either here or there. Doesn't matter which, but I recognize the need to keep costs down, so that gets sacrificed. So that does it for his accessories. pretty fully loaded figure there for a 2012 figure, considering that they've cut back on a lot of things. Now, for articulation, his head does move side to side, up and down a little bit. It is kind of restricted by the neck piece here, but that does give a little bit of added sculpt to the back there, instead of just having it kind of sticking up off the shoulders there. The arms do go all the way around. They are kind of limited by the chest piece here, chest armor. You're not going to get them as far down as some figures, but they do go out and in again. Rotate at the bicep, bend at the elbow, although again has a really weird feeling to it because the forearms are reversed. So like normally this would be on this side and that. So the wrist does swivel. He does have ab articulation, very much so, even with the armor on. He's got waist articulation, legs, very nice forward, back, out to the side. Rotate at the upper thigh, bend at the knee. They rotate at the boot there. They bend forward and back at the ankle, as well as pivot at the ankle. So you'll be able to get him in several dynamic poses there. So let's talk about his gimmick. Now his gimmick is the same as his vintage figure in that he stinks. No, I mean he literally has a smell about him. And similar to Mossman, they've added something to the actual plastic that the figure is molded out of. This time it's a patchouli oil that you might smell in certain types of incense. Curiously enough, I actually think his smell has gotten stronger since I've opened him up, whereas opposed to Mossman, his scent was stronger in the package and has gotten weaker. When I first opened him up, all I could really smell was that standard plastic smell that you get when you open these figures. And as I went on, his patchouli oil smell got stronger and stronger. Now it's not too strong, but I can, from about there, I can smell it now. And, you can really, if I get him real up close, he does start to be like, I want to get him away. Because patchouli oil is not really, it's not like a skunk smell, but to most people, it is not pleasant. You can really kind of start to, after you touch this guy and play with him, you can also kind of start to smell it on your fingers. So, but that's just, maybe it's the oils in your hands reacting with the plastic or whatever, but, I always have to wash my hands after playing with him. I did not have this guy as a kid. His vintage figure. And I don't believe they gave him very much. I don't recall seeing him on the old series either. I could be wrong, but I don't recall him being on this series. In the 2002 show, he has a pretty long arc of, for a very relatively small character. He starts out as like this little dude called Oedipus, and he's basically like a skeezy little guy who sells out his village when a warlord comes, and the sorceress helped defend the town, and then, since they discovered it was him who kind of ratted out the village to this warlord, they banished him, and he became a thief, and I believe he's hanging around a prison in, I think, the earliest episodes, like episode 1 or episode 2, and they're in a prison that the evil masters, Skeletor and them, attack, and he follows them back to Snake Mountain, where one of the experiments run by Triclops or somebody causes him to mutate into the sort of skunk man that you see before you, and gives him the ability to produce a really foul odor. Then he has to wear this containment suit basically to control, even for himself, which is why he has the gas mask, so as not to be overcome by his own fumes. But this was done over the course of several episodes, and so in that way it was kind of neat. So that'll be it for the Masters of the Universe Classics Stinkor. Stay tuned for a older figure that I managed to pick up on the day of sale, and one that I needed to complete a certain subset, if you will, of the Masters line. And until then, I'll see ya.